Hello and welcome to the Kscope Podcast. Billy Reeves here, O.R.k, the band made up of award-winning composer and vocalist Leth, King Crimson's Pat Mastelotto, Porcupine Tree's Colin Edwin, and Carmelo Pipitone have an album out on Kscope. It's entitled Ramagehead. And before we hear from Colin Edwin in an exclusive interview, here's the track featuring special guest vocalist System of a Down's Serj Tankian, Black Blooms.
Dark lines, broken but entwined, come glide into my dream. Come swim with me. Will the day arrive? Will the day arrive? The future so blind. Break through the ocean waves, I'm here. Just call my name. Just call my name. Oh, I turn to find you waiting there. Black blooms ignite. No one knew the sun was falling, falling apart. All the clocks are running backwards, backwards, backwards. All the stars gone forever. I mean you no harm. Don't walk away. Will that day arrive? The future so blind. Something I've never felt before. A pain that's worth living. Come swim out here. Let's fall away.
O.R.k, Black Blooms. The video is available to watch right now via kscopemusic.com/O.R.k. I spoke to Colin Edwin up at Kscope Towers recently, and he takes his coffee black and strong. Who'd have thought in 2019 that with all this technology and that, and the dystopian future coming real, that you and I would be talking about playing bass, guitar for money? And that's still a thing.
It still happens, yeah. I don't ask
Why?
me how. I don't know. I don't make any plans. I'm just very lucky that I get asked to do things, and I usually get asked to do things that I like. So that's a bonus. And then I always get asked to do things that I like, and then I get paid for. I'm triply lucky, I guess, and I'm keeping myself busy with all sorts of things. So that's great. But I couldn't offer any advice or tell anyone how to do it, because it seems to be a lucky combination of factors, and the fact that you just keep going and let yourself know that you're out there. That seems to be what it's about. But I'm really not a hustler, so I'm quite pleased.
I guess making a lot of records helps. I mean, I know session guys and pro musicians whose day job is being, a touring musician with a signed act, but making so many records on the side, making solo records, that really helps. I think that's really clever, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I usually find it's a cliche, but one thing leads to another. So I can sometimes trace 4 or 5 different things back to one meeting or one person I met or one gig I did, or and out of that one thing I've met somebody who's met somebody else who's introduced me to somebody who's asked me to do something, and that might have happened 3 or 4 times from one meeting. So that really is the case. Yeah. I'm just not saying no unless it's too bad.
Yeah.
But usually, just saying yes and being open to stuff has really helped me anyway.
Okay. Is it O.R.k. or O.R.k?
You can say what you like. I was very insistent at the beginning that it should be O.R.k. But we just get lazy and call it O.R.k.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, it's not.
It's easier. It's not helpful though. It's an ungoogleable name. If you Google O.R.k, you get loads of fantasy nonsense, which wasn't really. But actually, I will explain for the benefit, because I know you're going to ask me the next question is going to be, it's to do with in Italian, O.R.k means orca is killer whale. And the 2 of the guys in the band from Italy had I presume a drunken conversation when they were trying to work out a name for the band, and they came up with something, the title of which was in Italian, which I'm not going to say, was something to do with killer whales, and they wanted to get this into the name of the band, because the idea of a killer whale, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing.
Yeah.
So
you're a seal.
Yeah, and I said, well, we can't call ourselves O.R.k, we're not making nature documentary music, that just sounds ridiculous. So they wore me down that it should be O.R.k as an acronym, and I just thought, well, why not,
Yeah, that's exactly. By that point, could I describe the group as disparate individuals, and if that's the case, how do you find a common ground creatively?
Well, I like the idea of disparate individuals. I mean, I think that it's the kind of the band with everything in a sense. We've got an amazing vocalist. I'll big the other guys up for a minute, But I mean, he's an incredible vocalist. He's actually classically trained, and he's had a background in the past singing opera, so he's properly knows his stuff as a vocalist. He's got an incredible sense of orchestration. So much more developed than anyone I've met before. So he understands how different elements in a piece of music can fit together. On top of that, we've got Pat Mastalotto on drums, who's I shouldn't even need to talk about Pat, but for anyone who doesn't know, he's one of the King Crimson drummers. He's been for a long time, and he's had a fantastic career as a session musician as well, doing a lot of stuff probably people don't know about. So he's done a lot of things like, I think he's on the Friends theme with that band. Yeah, probably things that people don't know. Wow. He played with David Sylvian. He's got loads of interesting projects. He did a fantastic album with a crazy Finnish accordion player, which is well worth tracking down. Yeah. So really done loads and loads of interesting music and loads of top level stuff as well. And then Carmelo is the one person who I guess a lot of people don't know, Carmelo Pipitoni, but he was in a band from Italy called Marta sui tubi, which means Marta on the tubes. If you translate it, quite what that means,
as in underground train.
Well, I guess not, but that's I don't really know what that means. But they were quite well respected and they were quite successful for a long time. And he's got a really, really individual, unique style. So he plays a lot of finger picking stuff, most of it on acoustic guitar. So he's got a really amazing individual sense of the guitar, which for me is quite important because there's so many guitar players that just do the same thing. So he's a unique player. He's a really fiery individual. If you get the chance to see us live, then he's the one that brings the fire.
Splash, small load, as above, so below. Our house on the eye, wooden clothes, car crash on the road, feelings uncontrolled. Oh, seems so. Please hear my last appeal while you corrode. Feel nothing, let it go. Tell me where'd you go. So be heaven, now forever. We're deep into nothing, the reason's pain. So be heaven, see the devil.
Who's in charge then? How does the creative process work from that point of view if you're all in different countries?
I'm quite a regular visitor to Bologna, which is where the other two guys come from.
Okay.
And obviously it's not really possible for Pat, so For this record, we kicked off with some writing sessions with the three of us in Bologna.
Oh, right, in the same room.
In the same place, yeah. And then Pat had to, sadly couldn't be with us all at the same time. But we've had a long. At this point now, we've done quite a few tours together, so I think the chemistry is established. So everyone knows the framework, which is a really good thing. And live, there's a lot of stuff that's sort of open to interpretation in the moment. So there's a bit of improvisation. And
someone, I think it might have been you, described this album as the band's most ambitious and most accessible record to date. Is that not an oxymoron?
I don't think so. Ambitious in the sense that I think we've expanded the palette sonically, as in a natural way from the last record, but it's bigger than the last one in that sense. It's a big screen, but it's accessible as well. I think it's not something, for me anyway. There's a lot of tracks that are quite immediate. That I think. I'm obviously I'm a bit close to be totally objective, but I think there's stuff that a lot of people could pick up on. It's not. You don't have to work too hard to get drawn in. Hopefully,
That's a fair point. Explain to me the title of the record, because I thought the previous album had the best name for an album ever, and probably explained a lot of what we were talking about earlier on. Actually, with Disparate Individuals. Can you explain the title of this one?
Well, Ramagehead, we were looking for a snappy title that was, if you Google Ramagehead, you have to think about these things these days. If you Google Ramagehead, we're pretty much the only thing that comes up, which we learnt the lesson with our last album. If you Google that, a load of other stuff comes up. So we were looking for a snappy, one-word, memorable kind of thing, and it sort of fits with there's a loose theme with some of the stuff going on that, in these days we're overloaded permanently, so your head is rammed with what's coming into it from all corners. So it seemed like a snappy one-word title that we could sort of sum up a loose concept behind the record, if you like.
A lot of people listening to this, me included, will know you from Porcupine Tree, so we're going to have to talk about that for a little while, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's
fine. When I first came across Porcupine Tree, my understanding was that it was actually a bit of a gag, that it was almost like the Dukes of Stratosphere. If the XTC were doing their favourite music from the 60s, it was almost like Wilson and you guys were doing your favourite music from the 70s and 80s with a tongue in cheek perhaps, and then it just sort of blew into this sort of essentially the biggest, well I guess behind Marillion, the second biggest group in that field. Is that your story arc?
There's something of that in there, yeah. For me, I think the first initial stuff that Steve more or less did, on his own bat was almost a bit of a homage to his influences, if you like. But I think when at the point the rest of us got involved, that he perhaps started to see that the band, there was interest as soon as we started playing, there was interest and there was people that were digging it. So I think once he brought other people into it and he saw that how we all kind of fit into the initial framework that he'd made, that it was more of a serious contender for being a proper band, So I know that, I wish I still had it. He gave me a cassette with this ridiculous booklet with all this bullshit that he'd made up.
Yeah, no, you see, I've heard about
it. It does exist, and sadly I threw it away, which I could have eBayed it and probably, But it was everyone, it was like this fake. He constructed this kind of fake band history, and with one of the cassette releases that he'd done early on, and I think that just got forgotten about very quickly. Once we were actually playing, me, Chris, and Richard. This would have been once we were actually kind of all in the room together and playing, that sort of got forgotten about.
Yeah. I want to play a little, finish off by playing a little bit of a smash hits 80s game with you, if that's okay. The three of our mutual friends. It's a game I'm calling Harrison, Wilson, or Bowness. Okay, so each question has a one-word answer, and that one-word answer is either Harrison, Wilson, or Bowness. Okay. Ready?
Can I say all three if it's appropriate?
No. Okay. Because then you'll be disqualified. Right. Good question though. Who's the most punctual?
Harrison.
Tidiest?
Wilson.
Unpunctual?
Bowness.
Messiest.
Bowness.
Most up for a laugh.
Harrison.
Most serious.
It's probably Wilson, but
Who's the best at personal hygiene? I mean, you've been in a very small space with a lot of these guys.
well, I've no issues with any of them on that level.
Taking the fifth. Who's, when touring, who's the most rock and roll? Up latest.
It's probably Bowness, actually.
Earliest to bed?
Harrison.
Who's the biggest nerd?
Oh, it's Wilson.
O.R.k. You heard Some Other Rainbow Part 2, and before that, Kneel to Nothing. The album Ramagehead is out now, cover art by Adam Jones of Tool. The band are touring, including some dates supporting The Pineapple Thief. Check the website for details. Next up, forthcoming music from Giancarlo Erra. The No Sound main man releases his first solo album via Kscope on April the 12th. It's called Ends. This piece is entitled End 4. Giancarlo Erra from Ends of 4, and I'll be speaking to Giancarlo in a future Kscope podcast. Now, talking of debut solo LPs, Ed Wynne from Ozrics Tentacles has his album out on Kscope. It's called Shimmer into Nature. Here's a remix of the track Shim from F the Zeitgeist. Shim Ed Wynne, the the Zeitgeist remix, aka our friend Valmore, FKA World Engine. Check him out. fu-kthezeitgeist.com and kscopemusic.com/Ed for more details of the Ed Wynne album. Now, Ed's taking his band out live in support of Shimmer into Nature throughout May with Gong, who are also shortly releasing an LP on Kscope. Now, Gong's previous album, Rejoice I'm Dead, was nominated for a Prog Award in the Album of the Year category, and having taken over as frontman from David Allen following his death, Kavus Turabi leads the sound of the new Gong, and we'll be speaking to Kavus in a future podcast. The new album is called The Universe Also Collapses. More info on that release in the next podcast, but here is a little taster clip of a track called The Elemental.
In the sun, the elemental spirits take me for their own and put to fire everything we've ever known. The dawn of history, the golden age of man. The world is ending just the same as it began.
The new sound of Gong, a little bit of The Elemental, and you can listen to the whole track on streaming services, and there's also a video up on Kscope's YouTube channel. Now, chart toppers Mansun released the 21st anniversary deluxe reissue of the phantasmagorical second album, 6, on the 22nd of March. From that, here's the demo version of When the Wind Blows.
A lot of cake.
kscopemusic.com/man for more information. That's Mansun, When the Wind Blows. We'll be speaking to frontman Paul Draper in the next Kscope podcast. He's off to Japan and China for some live dates shortly, fresh from supporting Stephen Wilson throughout France. Our friends Tesseract continued their jaunt through the USA. Anathema have announced new festival dates, plus a very special show in Liverpool, July the 19th at the Grand Central Hall. 2 days later, they'll be at Night of the Prog 14 in Lorelei, Germany. The Pineapple Thief tour through Europe. Some of those dates with O.R.k, as mentioned. Godsticks are at the Lexington in North London on March the 15th. See you there. Cardiff the night before. And Godsticks will be appearing at some of the summer festivals starting in May at the Trinity 4 Festival in Leamington Spa. And we can now announce Kscope's Record Store Day exclusives. On the 13th of April, Mansun Legacy Double EP on one 12-inch vinyl disc for the first time following the 21st anniversary edition of 6. And Tangerine Dream Machu Picchu, a yellow 12-inch single. That's the late Edgar Froese's homage to John Peel, who died on a visit to Machu Picchu in 2004, and that's coming out on vinyl for the first time. Can I just take this opportunity to encourage you to check out our new website, kscopemusic.com. Thanks as ever for supporting independent artists. Very grateful to the bands and the solo artists that make Kscope possible. Do please like and share this podcast wherever you listen to it. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to finish this podcast with Iamthemorning from the album, an intimate studio film, Ocean Sounds. This one is entitled Chalk and Coal. See ya.
So I'm led to the choice. How many hours and hours will I sacrifice to find out this was all a lie? I've never been fine. Of all the incurable suffering, they only offer some pills that will make me sick.